your heads because you can hear us? Yeah, oh, you are shaking your head. Yeah, good.
Can you hear me? No?
Yeah.
Yes, you can now.
We are.
Great! Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the AWS London Summit.
Woo!
It's awesome to see so many of you here today, and I've really enjoyed hearing loads of your customer stories with GenAI. So, welcome to the session, GenAI in action, from proof of concept to business value. But before we kick off with an agenda, let's do a quick intro to ourselves. So, I'm Mike Dukes. I lead a team of specialists that help startups accelerate on AWS across EMEA. John, over to you.
I am John Hammond. I lead the specialist business for UK and Ireland. I work very closely with Mike. If you need help, we're here to help. So we have a whole team of AWS specialists. We specialize in everything from data to compute to modernization migration. Reach out to us. We really are here. Mike.
Absolutely, and I can't stress that enough. You as AWS customers have access to a huge range of support. So make use of your account teams, and you can also make use of our specialists as well. Simply ask for a deep dive, whether it's compute, GenAI, networking, storage, containers. We have loads of people to help here. So before we kick off, I want to do a bit of organized fun.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to raise your hands for me if you are already running or have run a proof of concept on AI. So raise your hands for me if you can. Okay, keep them raised. So keep your hands raised if you've taken a proof of concept into production. Cool, still a fair few amount of you. Okay, and keep them raised one more time if you've started to see significant value and business value from those proof of concepts.
Oh, we've got some. We've got some. That's good.
Still
good.
a fair few amount of you. You guys should come up and do this talk. But instead, why don't I hand over you to John, and you can talk about the agenda of the session.
Cool. So we've got really interesting stuff today. So we're going to talk through some of the innovation opportunities that really come through on AWS. How can you use GenAI? How can you start to innovate with your business? We're talking about some of the generative AI products that sit on AWS, whether that's either SageMaker, whether that's Bedrock, some really interesting stuff within there, what we're doing differently, where we think we're different. We talk through the customer priorities. So one of the things that's really good for us is we get to see so many different customers, so many different people doing this. So we've got quite a good view of what works, what doesn't. Hopefully give some tips to do that, to roll it out. And then finally, how to get moving today with generative AI. What are the things you need to know? What are the things you need to do? And how do you kind of start to do something in straight away? Should be fun. We've got a double act through this, so it should be entertaining. So before we look forward, let's look back. So we think backwards to 2023, which seems like absolutely years ago, not just the meager 2 that it is at the moment. And really, 2023 for us was that first year of generative AI. People had the basic questions. What is generative AI? Is it secure? The prompt engineering turned up, which personally I thought was rubbish, but it turns out is a real thing that goes through that's become really, really interesting. People worked out how do they choose a model? How do they get started? But really that introduction to what are they going to do? And then we roll forward into 2024. And for the folk putting their hand up, this is where most of you started to look into production. People started to work out, how do I prioritize my projects? What do I want to roll out? What do I want to have through it? People started to looking at the costs. There's a different business model that sits around AI products, both in terms of whether you're going to have costs within inference, whether you're going to have costs within training, but how do I understand and manage those through? And then finally, what customization? We started to get data coming into it. The real differentiator we'll go in is data that comes into this. And then finally, we get forward to the present day, so 2025, and we really is the year of business value. We're increasingly seeing that people want that return on investment. They want to understand what they're doing, why it's working. And there's all kinds of interesting stuff that's come into this. How do you leverage agents? We've seen around the conference today, there's so many people talking about agentic AI is the big thing that's going on. How do you transform your business? How do you get to a point where it's not just one person adopting AI, it's across the whole thing? How do you change, surprise, and how do you go deeper and wider within generative AI? So let's have a look through.
Yeah, sure. And I think just before we carry on, it's worth talking about whatever type of customer you are, whether you're a startup customer or whether you're a customer that has a huge organization, we're starting to see the same questions and challenges. what is the cost implications? What is the data? Am I thinking about security? Am I also thinking about that return on investment? And I think it's just worth exploring that how much this space is changing in the last few years. It was only a few years ago that we talked about one LLM model to rule them all. Then we've got loads of different models for different use cases. We've talked a lot about agentic workloads. And I think this year is all about MCP, but it's changing almost at a daily rate. But regardless of the changing landscape, we need to think about how do we scale AI? How do we get that return on investment? How do we do it in a secure and trusted way? So let's talk about where we can create business value with Gen AI.
So there's two ways that we're starting to see people doing it. It's interesting because history is a habit of repeating itself. So some of this goes down at first when people were starting initial cloud center of excellences. There's two sides that we're seeing people work on. One, on internal use cases, and roughly seeing about 50-50. So if you're thinking about starting with generative AI, start to look at these about equal within your business. One side is the internal side, so it's that operational efficiency. So how do you allow your workers, allow your teams to do more of the things they want to do and less of the things they don't like doing? How do you optimize those processes? How do you start to get to a point where no longer do we have to spend, I mean, it's fantastic within AWS, no longer do I have to spend hours going through and making reports. I have optimized, automated systems which can deliver me. And doing that, so it's how do you make everything more efficient? How do you utilize those resources better? Then secondly, employee productivity. And that's one of the things that really excites me at the moment. It's amazing what you can do, and that's that data to insight side of things. That's the content creation. One of the things that I'm most interested around this is generative AI for software development. It is amazing going through, using Amazon Q, going to a situation where you can automate testing, all that. But all of that is still, as fantastic as it is all those still internal use cases that sit around it. The other 50% that we're starting to see people do is that reimagining customer and user experiences. How do we surprise and delight? How do we make different products which couldn't exist previously? And that can be everything from ad experience, fan experience, to how do you reinvent your business that comes around it? It really does help through. What's your favorite use case around this, Mike?
Well, obviously, I think the internal gains is just a given, right? We're just going to see our productivity drive. I actually think it's really interesting because there's a lot of synergies from what we saw from the DevOps era of automation as well. But for me, I think it's this reimagination of customer experiences. I think it's just going to be completely changing in the way whatever industry and whatever tools that we have of how you interact with any kind of software and technology. It's very cool.
And I think it's interesting. If you think most of you now, when you go and you work through and you work with a website, you're used to having that text-based interaction. It's becoming the default that people expect a higher level of interaction. And I think there's some fantastic stuff that's going into it.
Cool. Shall we explore some use cases of a very small customer that you might not have heard of before?
So there's a small startup that's been doing okay for a couple of years ago called Amazon.com. So, we've really been using AI/ML as the core of what we do for more than 25 years. And there's some fantastic places that I'm guessing a few of you have interacted with. You may realize you're interacting with it. You may not to an extent. The first one is that customer-enabled self-service chatbot. It's fantastic. If you want to work out whether something hasn't been delivered, if you've got a problem with your order, realistically, what I want a response now. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait for a person. I want the answer. And all of that, we're doing that via generative AI. It's that surprise and delight. What customers expect is to be able to talk to someone that knows their answers and get them quickly. Then within Amazon Ads, so we're heavily utilizing our generative AI, whether that's either Nova, whether that's some of our other fantastic pieces, to give that customized content that comes through. Really, really fantastic. It allows brands to express themselves in a way they didn't before. And then finally, Amazon Inventory Management. So it amazes me, the stuff that I buy off Prime when the boxes arrive the next day, and I'm genuinely surprised to think, what did I order sometimes? How did it arrive this quickly? And all of that really comes from the fact that we're using AI to optimize the inventory management behind it. We're pretty proud of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some real aspects here, right? Is that the fact that you can contextualize and give the context for things like orders. So when you're talking to a chatbot, it can talk about the orders that you're doing that. And I think it's worth noting that actually Amazon Ads is actually using Amazon Nova behind the scenes. It's a really exciting space. Very, very cool indeed. And one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, how do you make AI scale? And we're proving it, right? We're proving it across millions of customers already, a lot of them using AWS technology behind the scenes. So let's talk about how to empower your AI journey. And we've looked at customers and industry leaders that are already making use of AWS, and we kind of boil it down to these three things. So first of all, the freedom to invent. AWS offers a really broad model choice. And as an industry, I think we've gone away from seeing singular kind of LLMs and models to absolutely thinking about how we can have different models for different use cases. We've also got a comprehensive set of AI tools, which we'll have a look at a little bit later. And then it's worth thinking about other things like our vast partner network. There's loads of resources, there's loads of programs to accelerate your use cases. And it's all about giving you the power to build this transformative GenAI experience. Number two, it's about value. And AI innovation shouldn't come at the expense of the bottom line. So that is why AWS can provide this cost-performant and cost-effective infrastructure with frontier intelligence at the leading price performance. And finally, trust. Trust is a huge priority for us, and which is why AWS uses that enterprise-ready and proven protection and reliability in the GenAI space too. But absolutely, you can also have the ability to customize, safeguards, and automated reasoning too. Now, we totally believe that choosing the right tool for the right use case is really, really important. So let's have a little bit of a look at the GenAI stack and the very diverse stack that we have. So starting at the very top, we've got applications to boost productivity. So you might have heard of Amazon Q Business, but it is a fantastic tool. It's your GenAI-powered assistant for finding that information, gaining insight, and taking action. And one of the things I really love about Q Business is it's giving you that ability to inject context about your business, but also scale at an organizational level, add that security, add that trust, making it accessible to everyone in your organization. It's helping you move faster. Then we have Amazon Q Developer, and that's absolutely accelerating the software lifecycle. It helps not just developers, but IT professionals with all of their tasks. And the use cases are huge. So we can talk about coding, we can talk about testing, we can even look at troubleshooting, or you might even want to look at security elements. So how do you do security scanning, fixes, modernizing applications, or even optimizing resources, and even all the way to creating data engineering pipelines too.
I think we've got some amazing QCLI. I think that's the bit for me.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I'll talk a little bit about that later. So that's our top layer, the applications to boost the productivity. Then we also have the models and tools to think about how to build generative AI apps. So absolutely at the center of this is Amazon Bedrock. And that is the easiest way to build and scale these GenAI apps. It offers a huge amount of choice with models. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bedrock soon. And then finally, at the bottom of the stack, we'll talk about the infrastructure to build and train AI models too. So we've got Amazon SageMaker AI. It's totally our managed infrastructure platform that helps you build, train AI models all together. Then we've got a custom silicon, so Trainium, Inferentia, and of course, we have that wide selection of GPUs. So let's have a little look about this customer case study. So, John, what can you tell me about Bundesliga?
Bundesliga, what can't I tell you about Bundesliga, Mike? That's a big question. I mean, they're over there. I saw their football thing, if people haven't seen before. I mean, they're an amazing organisation. Germany's Premier Football League, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you haven't checked out the free kick thing, go and have a look at it afterwards. It's very cool. So, Bundesliga wanted to work backwards from their fan base, and they wanted to revolutionize the football experience through GenAI. So they had this really centric vision. They wanted to be the world's most fan-centric league. And in fact, Bundesliga has over 1 billion fans. Wow. Quite a lot, right?
The 1 billion?
1 billion, 1 billion. Right. It's almost as much as your LinkedIn, John, but not quite.
Give it time.
But the challenge was clear with Bundesliga, right? Is they wanted to deliver personalized, real-time experiences to millions of fans. But how do you consider this with different languages, different cultures, and even personal preference? And to start this journey, they needed a really solid data foundation. So one of the things that I find staggering about this story is that they collect 3.6 million data points per match. So whether that's through cameras, whether that's through human loggers, it absolutely acts about the foundation of transformation. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but absolutely, to start a really powerful GenAI story, it absolutely needs to rely on this data foundation. And the first AI product that they created was called Bundesliga Stories. Effectively, what that did is it took these long-form articles and transformed them into these short-form slides in just 5 to 15 seconds. It made use of Amazon Bedrock, it made use of some LLMs, and it automatically generated these titles and descriptions while using Amazon recognition to also choose the most appropriate and relevant images. But I think one of the things, as we talked about between the Gen AI use cases, internal and external, this didn't just become time-saving for the teams, but it absolutely created more resonating content. And
surprise and delight.
Absolutely.
Surprise and delight.
And since October 2024, they generated over 400 monthly stories, they drove a 2 times increase in app viewership, and achieved a 50% internal efficiency gain. Very, very cool. And the second part of the Bundesliga story is another product that they use. They didn't just stop there. And starting in 2025, they're actually going to start launching a new product called AI Live Tracker. And effectively, it will deliver real-time game updates to fans and editorial teams. But one of the favorite things I love about it is it will customize the language, and you'll even be able to choose the communication style. So you'll be able to choose from a commentator in a professional way or a more conversational tone too. And that, for me, is where we're really seeing AI powerful, that fan embodiment, creating more resonating content for their fans and the way that they want to consume it.
And it's that ability to customize, the ability to talk to your audience. It's an amazing world that we live in when you can take audiences of 1 billion people and you can talk to each person of that billion like they were only one. And I think that's some of the beauty that you have, these mass customizations, these mass specific, and it's just fantastic to see them inventing with us on AWS.
Absolutely. So when we talk about what's a priority for the customer with Gen AI success, it really comes down to a number of things. So through our work with customers across industries, we've identified these 4 key priorities that we think is critical for Gen AI success. So number 1, the time to value. And in this space, organizations need to move extremely quickly. You can't waste time switching between tools and building infrastructure. Second, as I said with Bundesliga, it's all about that data, making sure that data is AI ready and critical for the success. Third, price performance. As we scale from training to inference, organizations need that predictable cost and that management. And fourth and most critically, trust. With robust security and governance, it's really important to how we scale with AI. So let's quickly talk about time to value. Every day spent on heavy lifting is a day lost to competition. And bear that in mind in this space. We're delivering faster time to value through these key capabilities. So I've mentioned it already, but let's talk about Amazon Bedrock. And Amazon Bedrock is the easiest way to build and scale Gen AI applications with a range of foundational models. So let's talk about what Bedrock is. Well, it's actually a managed service. It offers a choice of foundational models and from a wide range of leading AI companies. But alongside that, it actually has some really cool capabilities. So not only to build these apps, but also making the development simple while maintaining security and privacy. And with Amazon Bedrock, you can absolutely customize models as well. So you can use techniques such as fine-tuning or RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and it's really, really cool. But you can additionally create managed agents to execute complex business tasks too. We talked about this a bit earlier in the week, John, didn't we, about some managed agents type elements. Any favorite use cases that you can think of?
So I think it's so broad at the moment. I think some of the stuff that I've seen recently in terms of being able to do report writing, documentation around it, I think seems really impressive. I think the thing that I really like about Bedrock is it's that diversity of models that it enables you to access. One thing I really like about our strategy around this is we've put diversity at the absolute core of our AI strategy. I think it's extraordinarily important that we have diversity of models, diversity of thought that runs through it. And it's something I'm genuinely proud about. I think also we kind of show the stuff that needs to be on. An API endpoint that can just generate text is very, very useful. Degenerate, it's fantastic. But it's those pieces around it. It's the guardrails, it's the security, it's the privacy. It's very, very impressive.
It is very cool. But also remember that managed service element, right? Is that it's serverless, so you don't have to manage any of the infrastructure as well. And it also enables you just to build these Gen AI applications with the AWS services that you're familiar with. And you absolutely hit it on the head, right? Is the diversity of models. It offers a huge range of foundational models. And our customers are telling us one of the most important and their favorite things about Bedrock is that ability to experiment with, select, and combine this wide range of foundational models. And we have models from the ability of lots of different leaders, right? So AI21 Labs, we've got Anthropic, we've got DeepSeek in there, we've even got Meta, Mistral, and all the way to Stability AI too. Any favorite model that springs to mind, John?
Depends on the day, honestly. It depends on the day. You know, I think it's really impressive, some of the stuff that I think Poolside's coding model is very good. I think some of the graphics come with Stability are fantastic. You know, I think DeepSeek is really good, the advanced reasoning capabilities that come with it. The fact that you know when you're using DeepSeek R1 virus, using a secure individual thing, so you got no worries about where your data's going with it. Nothing leaks out. You know, I think the thing that's really key for me is the fact this is one API call. So, you know, normally if you were looking with a lot of the other options, you have to re-customize your code when you move around. That choice and that ability to use the right model for the right task at the right time is really, really key. And then more than that, we're not stopping here. You know, the reality is we will continue to iterate, add models, reduce the price, do the selection around it. And the fact you can take that all through one API really does start to grow with the thing. But yeah, I think Luma's very good. I did play with that lately.
I mean, you hit it on the head before, right? Diversity is really, really key here, the diversity of model choice. And it's that ability to adopt through different models, which I think makes it really, really valuable, all through that single API, as you said. So that's Amazon Bedrock. While Bedrock is great and it's a really fast path for building Gen AI applications using foundational models, organizations wanted a bit more flexibility. And that is absolutely why we've also got Amazon SageMaker AI. That is for building, training, and deploying machine learning models at scale, including the foundational models. And it offers a huge range of foundational models and loads available publicly for a faster time to market.
The one-stop AI shop.
Absolutely. Good. You should be in marketing. It's fantastic. So it also offers the capabilities to build foundational models too. So you can build it from scratch, you can customize existing models, and you can even implement these robust MLOps practices at scale. And it's also built with this enterprise readiness in mind. I think a lot of people kind of associate SageMaker AI with just training, but it absolutely can run inference too. And actually, one of my favorite tools in the SageMaker stack is actually Hyperpod. It's a really cool feature. It helps building out machine learning clusters in a really resilient way. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're looking at training. So we've looked at tools to help build apps. We've looked at the kind of managed scaling for training. So let's have a think about AI assistants. And absolutely, AI assistants are just helping with this rapid unlock of productivity. And we wanted to offer customers an easier path to integrate with Gen AI seamlessly and securely into your organizations. And that is absolutely why we built Amazon Q. So I've already mentioned Amazon Q Developer, but just as a reminder, it's that powered assistant throughout the software development lifecycle. It helps improve that speed, improve that quality, and even that throughput of developers. But actually, one of my favorite new features in Amazon Q Developer was only launched in March, and that is the enhanced CLI agent. And it actually brings the power of agentic AI onto your desktop with the command line. It gives you the ability to reason, it gives you a wide range of use of development tools like Git, and you can do it all from the CLI. And actually, I was showing you this week how great it is as a tool. Please download it and try it. It's really, really cool.
It's really cool. It's like having a little baby developer sitting on your
It is,
your desktop.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was only using it for mundane things like sorting out my desktop or building kind of wiki pages.
Those aren't mundane, Mike.
But absolutely, it's really, really powerful, and I think this is a really cool feature that has just come out with Q Developer, so check it out. It's moving very quickly. We then have Amazon Q Business. So absolutely, it's another generative AI. This kind of sits at more of the business side. It enables you to leverage your company data and make use of it in a scalable, secure way to everyone in your organization. And there's two things I really particularly love, is that ability to inject the context into Q Business is really powerful. And the second thing is it integrates really well with a load of tools of third-party nature. So that could be Jira, that could be ServiceNow, that could even be Salesforce. There are loads of integrations out there. And I think Dave is doing a talk on Q-Business in this kind of auditorium A later today.
Dave
so
Pesci is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. It's the ability to write apps in it. It's really easy to get started. And it's one of those things, we did it, we use it internally pretty extensively. And the reason we did it is we wanted to see how we can make sure that generative AI was being used all across Amazon. We use it, we make choices around it. We think it's pretty good.
It's very cool. Awesome. So, again, we talked about Bedrock, but actually, another thing to bear in mind when we talk about this productivity element is that you can even create agents very, very quickly with Amazon Bedrock today. So it's as simple as selecting your foundational model, selecting your basic instructions, selecting the relevant data sources, and even specifying the available actions to it. And we've been working with hundreds of customers since this went GA last year. But as we grow in time, the complexity of agentic workloads is just going to come really big, right? And I think it's actually becoming super critical that not only multi-agents needs to collaborate with other agents, but also humans too. What's your thoughts on this?
I think really that kind of human-machine chimera almost is where stuff is starting to go. I think the more that you can start to take the best of technology and the best of humans together, that's really where I'm excited of it going. And we see some fantastic examples from our customers when we go through that.
Great. Talking about customer examples, John, why don't you tell us about Moody's?
What do you think of when I say the word Moody, Mike?
Other words come to mind.
Other words come to mind. So Moody's, the leading provider of analytic, financial and risk management data. They're one that you may know of. If you don't, they're definitely impacting your life in terms of using it through systems. They've got a system that uses agentic AI, which takes these complex financial risk reports and it generates them in just 1 hour. And 1 hour, why is that good, you may think? Well, previously that took 1 week per person to complete. So you think of the time that's being saved. It really is one of these things where they're able to adapt quicker to customers, give really good reports back. They're driving a load of agents with Amazon Bedrock. And I think there's a lot more from us that's going to come over this in the near term. Some really exciting stuff that's going to get...
Absolutely.
I can't talk about it, otherwise I'll get trouble.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us now about AI-ready data, John?
Yes. So AI-ready data. So one of the things that's been interesting about generative AI is it's kind of a bit of a levels the playing field effectively. Because, you've got to a situation where everyone here can suddenly almost like pull out a PhD level assistant out of their pocket effectively. Again, another tongue twister as we go there. Yeah. PhD pocket. But what makes the difference? Well, the difference really is it's the data that your company has. All of that comes through the strong data foundations, so making sure that those investments that you've had within data over long periods of time, you can maximize that value through it. And it's really wicked. There's a few ways that we go through it. So data really is your differentiator within there. We've learned this internally as Amazon. It's been 25 years we've been using ML and AI, and we've really learned a lot about how to leverage that technology around it. To really start to get the most out of generative AI, you need to start with the data story. How are you going to leverage the data that you have? How are you going to make sure that you can use it, that you can catalog it, you can transform it, you can use it in a way that you between different teams, and do all of that securely together? You really can't build a Gen AI strategy without a data strategy. So one thing I'd recommend to all of you who are thinking about Gen AI and you are thinking about AI, think about your data first, because that's really where it comes from. That's where the differentiator has. It does take time. It takes real thinking about how to bridge those gaps through. But within data, there's so many different ways that we can start to use it. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of different. There we are. We can leverage all different kind of data types. And that can be structured data, so that can be tabular format, that can be things out of databases, out of data warehouses that can come through. That can be unstructured data. So what I think is fantastic is you can see, we've worked with a couple of customers, and they'll effectively take their internal wikis, their internal JIRAs, and they'll let loose on the whole thing. So all this fantastic unstructured data that's been going. And then finally, multimodal. So multimodal, videos, text, images, all of that together. What do you like in terms of data? What's your favourite?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone loves the unstructured data, right? We can use it very, very quickly. We can just throw it at it. But I think what's really interesting about this for me is it's actually just going to change our typical traditional application stacks, right? We've seen traditional applications, use a database. That's kind of been the package model for a very long time. I think this is just going to completely change how we see the application stacks in the future. And actually, we're already working with a load of customers that have taken kind of traditionally built apps and moved towards a Gen AI way. It's really exciting for me.
Yeah, and I think it's great. That documentation that's been sitting there that people don't necessarily always pay attention to as much, that is your training data around it. And I think it's fantastic how we can go through. And there's a number of different ways that you can access all of this. The three ways we see people trying to integrate this normally. The first is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And effectively what that does is it starts to customize it through by inserting some of that within the prompt itself. It's really good for use cases where that data is going to be refreshed often. So, for example, if you want to connect it to some of your live systems, you want to connect it to code, anything that's updated frequently, it's extraordinarily powerful. The amazing thing I find, it's just really easy to get started with it. I mean, it really is a matter of you can get the data sources, you can pull them, and you can start going through. Then second, we have fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is when you want that kind of more specific industry knowledge, but you want to try and customize the models. It's done in a batch, so you want to tune the model through, but it really is something that starts to make it more specific to your business, to your intelligence. It can also be distilled, there's some other fun stuff you can do with it as well that can reduce cost. And then finally, you've got continued pre-training. And continued pre-training really is this point where you start to constantly train the model. Really, if you've got industry-specific knowledge, there's a bunch of stuff around it. Which do you have a favourite?
I mean, RAG just makes everything really easy, right? I think that's a really cool one. But I think you can make use of it across whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. But the key thing to remember, as you're thinking about your applications, think about your data, because the data is the thing that has real value sitting around it.
I actually really like your analogy, John, of data. Data is the new oil, effectively, for your business, right?
It is, and I think, for so long, it's interesting. We've been saying this data is the new oil all the way through. And I think finally AI is almost this combustion engine that's turned up that can start to take advantage of it, can start to process it, hopefully in a greener way, and can go through. And the key thing for all of this is data integration and scalability. One of the things that really makes sense is you need to be able to take this data in, you need to be able to run it at scale, you need to be able to go through, you need to be able to work out how you can take this over to whole companies. And we've been investing internally around this for quite some time. So one of the things that we're really proud of that we have is SageMaker Unified Studio. So SageMaker Unified Studio, if you're looking at data, it really is the way to start to bring together all of the components you need for your data strategy. So that can be everything from SQL analytics, from data processing to Gen AI app development. And it really is that one-stop data shop, I'm going to go with that,
nice.
One-stop data shop that runs through and starts to pull all of this together. We use it extensively internally. It's fantastic to see this running out. And all of that is underpinned by the data and AI governance. So the key thing is you add people in, realistically when you're doing this, you want to make sure that it really comes end to end. You can spread out across the whole of your business. And that really comes to this governance side. And then underneath all of it is the lakehouse architecture that enables you to scale this, to move it around. And data is the foundation of full generative AI applications. It really is coming from this moving data quicker. It is the differentiator to this. When we look at projects that are successful and projects that we see the real ROI coming through them, it's the ones where they use data go through it. You want to maximize those investments as well. People have been investing in data for a very long period of time. I'm sure most of you will have data warehouses or large-scale sets of data. The ability to unlock it, to make sure that you're taking advantage and you're really pulling that investment out. The best thing when you're building a business case is to work out where you can pull money out of things that would have been done. I think it's a really key thing. But all of that, you need to protect it. You need to have that built-in governance, that built-in security that comes with it. And that's something that we're really proud of, the security that we give you through SageMaker. And then finally, you want to be able to scale it. We run this at Amazon scale. When you're using AI tools with Amazon, you're using this behind it. So we know how to scale this. So you want to make sure you can take advantage, you can maximize your investment, you can protect them, and you can scale it. And one company that we've seen this do really well with is Intuit. Oh, and we're going back. With Intuit, there we are. Yeah. And they really did run through us. They built that strong data foundation on AWS. It really starts with them of working out. They moved into AWS back in 2013. They started that data situation, and they get huge amounts of data points, like 500,000 data points per small business. They worked on how they were going to do this end to end. I think it's a great example, really, of how that kind of combination of human, data, systems, all of it, absolutely fantastic.
I think we've all interacted with Intuit in some way or form. I know that I've got a lot of MailChimp mails in my...
There's a monkey on your back, Mike. Monkey on your back.
Absolutely. Cool. So we've talked about time to value. We've talked about getting your data AI ready. So let's think about price performance now. So it's obviously one of our customers' most pressing concerns. And let's think about it from not only an infrastructure perspective, but training and inference cost too. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the custom silicon journey at AWS. So we actually realized a few years ago to be able to maximize performance, to lower costs, and even to optimize compute availability, we would need to innovate all the way down to silicon. And this isn't the first time that we've done this. You might have heard of AWS Nitro before, and that is almost what I think of the secret sauce that runs AWS. But if you look at that story, effectively it was taking traditional software hypervisors and externalizing some of the components to silicon hardware. This absolutely drastically increased the efficiency of our data centers, and it was the ability to offer more instance types as well. So that was the first part of the journey. The second part of the journey, we took that same custom silicon mindset and took it to CPUs. And you might have heard of AWS Graviton. By making that journey and doing custom silicon with CPUs, we're able to offer better price, better performance, and even better energy efficiency to offer sustainability. And that is, of course, why we've taken custom silicon to our purpose-built AI chips too. And Trainium and Inferentia are really designed specifically for these AI workloads. So the actual first generation of Trainium and Inferentia 2, we helped customers lower their training and inference costs by 50%. Now in Trainium 2, we delivered the highest performance in AWS for training and deploying models at the trillion parameter scale and deliver up to a 40% better price performance for AI workloads comparable to those GPU instance types too. So our purpose-built AI chips deliver this exceptional performance, but choosing the right infrastructure is just one piece of the optimization puzzle. But let's have a look at another critical aspect. So it's a balance between latency.
Oh, we're going to do the tennis thing?
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, cost.
Yeah.
But model choice matters. We know that, right? We know that model choice matters. But it's really difficult to find the perfect model. So how do you find the model when it gives you that balance of expertise, latency, and cost? Let's have a look at some examples. So some models might have the right expertise, but they might be really expensive and slower. And other models might be faster and cheaper, but it might not be able to meet the needs of your particular use case. So to help customers navigate these trade-offs, we've come up with some really innovative features with Amazon Bedrock. So first of all, Dave actually talked about in his keynote this morning, but he talked about model distillation and what that was. And it's effectively taking a big teacher model and teaching a smaller student model. But by doing this, it actually makes it hugely quicker. In the example on the percentages here, it's like 500% quicker and 75% less expensive. But it actually only drops the accuracy very, very minimally. And it's really good for use cases such as RAG. Then we've got Amazon Bedrock Intelligent Prompting. And again, Dave mentioned this morning, but it does what it says on the tin, right? It automatically routes prompts to different foundational models. And to do this, to optimize the quality and lower the costs. But again, as we were talking about earlier, it's all about that single endpoint that enables you to do that. And finally, Amazon Bedrock support for prompt caching too. And again, that's what it says on the tin. It securely caches entire prompts, and it reduces that cost by up to 90% while increasing that latency drastically. So with these features, it helps you optimize the model performance and costs. But we know that workloads have different requirements too. So that's why we also offer different inference consumption models. Now, if you're familiar with the purchase options on AWS, of course we're familiar with on-demand. And it kind of is the same concept. So with on-demand, you pay for the input and output token count for LLMs. But what I always used to preach about the purchase options, and I'll preach it here too, is choose the right workload for the right purchase option or inference consumption. And on-demand is great for prototyping, for proof of concepts, for smaller workloads where you have that relaxed requirements too. And then we've got provision throughput. And again, that is just reserved throughput at a fixed cost. And the kind of workload that's really good for is when you know exactly the kind of consistency and inference workloads that you're going to need guaranteed throughput for. And the final one, which actually I think is kind of my favorite because it makes you think in this workload model too, is batch inference. And this allows you to officially run models at a hugely discounted rate, but it's designed, again, for specific types of workloads. And those workloads are those that don't need an immediate response and can work with that offline processing.
And I think it's that batch one that's really, really good. I think there's all kinds of use cases when you have data and it's not directly interacting with the customer. So you need something done, you need some analysis done on large amounts of data. Really that batch changes the business cases that can be working in it.
Absolutely. So we developed these approaches, features and different consumption models to really drive down that optimization. But in that continuous innovation and continuous optimization journey, we also knew that we would need to do this at the model level. And that is exactly what Amazon Nova does. It's that state-of-the-art foundational model, but delivering the frontier intelligence with that industry-leading price performance. And it works across multiple modalities, right? So from video and image generation to price-performant text-to-text model. And actually, Nova Micro, Lite, and Pro are among the actual fast and best performing models in their respective intelligence classes in Bedrock. And then, of course, we have the creative content generation models. John, what's your favorite use cases for the
I like randomly making videos on Amazon Reel and sending to you. I think it's quite entertaining, honestly. But it's really amazing. There's something amazing, the fact that you can type in and you can kind of magic out the really high-quality graphics. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and absolutely. We said Amazon Nova was being used for the Bundesliga example earlier as well. And actually, one of the things I'm really excited to talk about today, which isn't even on the slides, is that earlier in April, we released Amazon Nova Sonic. And that is a state-of-the-art speech-to-speech model that delivers real-time, human-like voice conversations. Going back to that point that we're just changing the way that we're going to interact with systems. If you have that speech-to-speech workload and need, look out at Amazon Nova Sonic. So, John, tell us a little bit about Trellix.
So Trellix is a security company with a really rich history. It's 37, going back to McAfee antivirus, for people that remember McAfee back in the day.
Yeah.
Wonder what he's up to now. So effectively, what used to happen is large amounts of security alerts came through every day. Often, staff don't necessarily make sense, but will need to work out how to do this. Really without this, you kind of have a choice of, do you look through them? Do you just kind of stick your hand in the sand and hope it doesn't work? They went through, using Amazon Bedrock, developed this kind of really interesting multi-model approach to take smaller models, larger models, and really starts to get all of this back into this daily report that comes through. It takes those alerts through about 30 seconds or so, and that does some 80 person hours of work. So it's fantastic. Security comes in, teams come in, they're happy, they know where they are. It's good.
Very cool. Right.
Yep.
Finally, and we'll just finish off with trust, the fourth priority.
So trust is something that is fantastic in terms of it's something that it takes years to build trust, and it takes mere moments to effectively lose that. So it's something that's really key, and it's really key to us. And when we do things, they have to be trustworthy. They have to have those built-in security features from day one. For AWS, really security is our #1 priority through all of this. It's straight into it. And that means we've got zero access to your sensitive data. We've got zero access to the models. We make sure that data is handled securely across the whole of the life cycle. All kinds of companies, governments, military organizations, everyone across these using it. So it's one of these things. So that security really does underpin what we do through it. All of it is isolated per customer. It remains in the AWS region where they're created. But on top of that, there's the other side of security that becomes really key. How do you safeguard this? This is a technology that's kind of different from what's been used before. So you need to really go to a system. How do we build guardrails around all of that? And using that same one API before. One of the things that we tend to do is we'll look at responsible AI policies. They can be content filters. You don't want an AI giving advice on something that it shouldn't be. So you can set policies, you can set denied topics through all of it. And it'll do that both through the user input and through the output itself before showing that response back to the user. It really does. It's one of those things that you need to think about to make sure that you give back to what your users they need, but not what they don't. We've also got coming automated reasoning checks. And they're a really fantastic thing that comes in. It's part of a new field called symbolic AI. You can use actual proper policies within it. You can use mathematical details to ensure that the data is coming back. It's really something that's very, very key. Something you don't get anywhere else at the moment. It's very, very key. So if you are doing it, look at automated reasoning through this. And we've got a good example of someone who's already using some of this, I believe.
I mean, it's very new, but with guardrails particularly, Grab is a really great example. So if you haven't heard of Grab, they're the leading super app in Southeast Asia. So they do deliveries, mobility, digital financial services. And again, when we talked about scale with AI, they're doing it with more than 42 million monthly transacting users. So we're proving this scale out already. So Grab made use of Amazon Bedrock guardrails, and it ensures that Gen AI applications, they used it to protect their customer data privacy. They use it with their commitment to use responsible AI practices. And in fact, Padern Wilson, head of machine learning, said, Bedrock guardrails perform the best in class. And then he even went on to say, Amazon Bedrock guardrails helps us know that we have the robust safeguards that align with our commitment to deliver responsible AI while keeping us and our customers protected against new attacks against our AI-powered applications. It's a really good example. Go and check them out online if you want to hear more. So as we've seen with Grab and other customer examples today, customer success really boils down to a number of different things. So we've talked a little bit about the customer priorities and all about how AWS empowers, but let's talk about a bit of an action plan, John.
Yeah.
How can we go forward?
So step one, select the right use case. So the really key thing is if you're going to do this, do it on something that matters. It has to be something impactful. It has to be something that influences. So pick something that is viable and impactful. It makes a difference and you can see the ROI on it.
Absolutely. And point number 2, providing access to the right tools and platforms. So we've explored this with AWS today, but I think there's a lot more to this. How do you invest in training and skill development? How do you create a space for experimentation? And how do you foster that culture of secure AI-enabled innovation? And on to number 3, John.
Yeah, so number 3, work towards that proof of concept with help from AWS. There are loads of materials. There's loads of places done before. We have experts in the room. Go to the Ask an Architect, but ask for help. Network with your peers. We're in all of this together. Upskill your workforce and go through.
Absolutely. So I really hope you've enjoyed the session today. And if you go on to the next slide, John, check out skillbuilder.aws. It's a really great place to learn skills. I'm sure you've seen this slide a lot today, but please go and have a look at it because it's great for accelerating the Gen AI. And then finally, just a massive thank you. Feel free to add me and John on LinkedIn. I've put our LinkedIn on there if you ever want to talk. I'd love to hear more about startups. John would love to hear more about any kind of customers.
Anything, really.
Yeah. And please make use of the QR code for us and just leave us a review. It means a lot to us.
And I would say Mike was the top-rated speaker last year. So if it goes down, he has threatened me. So good reviews are definitely preferable.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for your time and have an amazing summit. Go and check out some of the amazing demos on Gen AI everywhere and enjoy the rest of the time.
Leave your headphones as well. Please leave your headphones on the thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.